Square Up.
Yo, what's going on, man? It's Andre Berto, two-time world champion. I fought. I loved it. I really wanted to do that sit down from a fighter's perspective.
My G. What's going on? Caleb Platts.
What's going on, my boy? Now you got a chance to really draw in your audience, to let them see who you are.
I've had to have a lot of internal talks to say, do I even want to carry on?
As fighters, we know what time it is. Like I think the time is now.
Square Up.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform. Let's go.
This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Hour number 2 underway, 8 a.m., Tuesday, June 23rd, right here on Jocks. We've had conversations of maybe the great divide in college football for quite some time. Will it happen? Is it going to happen? Is there going to be some pull away? There have been accusations of a super conference by different individuals. Obviously, we've heard about that discussion in Washington the last couple of weeks. Tim Stevens is going to join us in just a moment to have that discussion on the Higginbotham hotline. First, I'll tell you about our friends at Train. It has been comfortable the last few days. You guys know good and well that's not going to stick around, not going to be here for long. The heat and humidity will return. Keep your home and family comfortable with America's most reliable HVAC brand, Train. And to help, Train is offering a $1,350 rebate on select home comfort systems. Learn more. Find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It's hard to stop a Train. Tim Stevens joining us now from the Diehard Sports Network. Article up at diehardsportsnetwork.com. The Moat. The real divide in college sports isn't driven by what you think. So, Tim, for those that have not read your article, we will tag that from our Twitter account and try to get that in front of more people for you. What would be the great divide in college sports that some are may not considering right now?
Yeah, so if you look at what's happening in Washington, great, Cole, Greg, thanks for having me on. Like if you look at what's happening in Washington right now, they're right now everything is focused on, passing this bill, bringing some sanity to the NIL landscape and the revenue share with college athletics, which certainly isn't going away, but it does need structure. I think everybody agrees to that. And people tend to focus this right now on, is this the SEC and the Big Ten versus everyone else, and at least the super conference discussion. But these are issues that have existed in college athletics really since the first time someone pointed a television camera at a football field and say, this could be pretty big and it could make some money. And the real divides along those lines are not have versus have not. And they never have been. It is about political coalitions within those groups. And right now, people tend to focus this on Power 4 versus group of 6 or 5 or whatever you want to call it. And that's not really where it is. The divide is between have more and have everything, okay? And if you look at this bill and where it's going, this is not G6 versus P4. This is the 20 to 25 brands in college athletics that drive 90% of the revenue and 90% of the eyeballs, and who gets to be allowed to be associated with them. And this bill, as it currently sits, really is about protecting the Big 12 and the ACC and their position much more than determining what happens for the SEC and the Big Ten. And that's where the fight's going to be.
So a lot of people have painted the biggest brands as the real enemy here, the Alabamas of the world, the Ohio States of the world. And basically your argument is it's really not those schools that are kind of driving this train, because G6 access, for example, wouldn't affect them because in all likelihood they would take care of business if they played against a G6 team in the playoff. It actually sounds like it's coming from the middle to bottom tier of those P4 teams. Am I reading this correctly, and am I accurate in depicting the way you're trying to describe it?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really, really good. And I've said this before on X, and it always leads to some interesting conversations. I would tell you that the most subsidized entities in all of American sports, college, pro, anywhere you want to look, are the 25 to 30 Power 4 brands that nobody actually watches unless they're playing one of those big dogs. Okay? They've been in a position of privilege and inclusion in the club all along, simply because they were around when these things were being formed and when the power structure was being built up from the beginning. But, they've had 50 years of television access and shared revenue, a number that begins with a B, by the way, that they've received, each of those schools, and they've done virtually nothing with it except provide regular and reliable semi-competitive L's, losing a clip to those power brands that's somewhere between 60 to 75, 80% of the time they play them, okay? And you can go look up the numbers. I'm not making this up. You can go look at their numbers. You look in those big brands. What's Mississippi State? I'm not picking on them, but just what's Mississippi State's records against Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU? What is it? It's going to be about 30%. And I can look at any brand at the bottom there, and that's what it is. And this has been about really protecting their place. And this bill is structured. Who's leading it? Who's pushing it? It's coming out of the Big 12, right? It's coming out of a billionaire who says, wait a minute, what happens to us if we lose our access? This is about making sure their position is protected and that the Big Ten and the SEC don't just grab 3 or 4 more brands that really belong in their group if we're just looking at strict television revenue possibility and doing their own thing. And that's really where this fight is going to sit. And the G6 are just tagging along for the ride, hoping that they can be a useful ally because their access really is just about association. If you look at college sports, there's those 20, 25 brands. We all know who they are. Doesn't matter what conference they're in. It's their brand, who they are, and their television value. And everybody else, all the way down to D2, their value is directly determined by how closely they get to sit next to those 20 to 25.
Tim Stevens of the Diehard Sports Network joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline discussing kind of the moat of college sports, mainly college football, and where things are headed. I love some of the conversation starters with the G6 here and where you go in your article and how you bring them up here on the show. I've asked the question for a long time. Is anyone out there sitting around in a forward-thinking fashion because the way you laid it out that they're just sort of hanging on for dear life is the way that I have viewed it for quite some time. And I get it. It's a lot of revenue they're hanging on to, and there should be a real fear that you might not be able to generate that much more. But is there any conversation you've heard of, you've seen, you've been made aware of, that is in more of a forward-thinking fashion from the lower levels of college football to say, we got to come up with our own thing? Because if we don't, we're going to get left behind and have literally nowhere to turn instead of trying to get ahead of it and find something to do on their own.
Oh, I think that is definitely happening. It's been really interesting, guys, to see the way opinions have split along these lines as well as the way they have evolved. Okay, let's just be real about it. The G6 and the P4 operate in a completely different financial reality. And it's not separated in a small amount. It is separated by tens of millions of dollars annually, compounded by decades. You can just do the math on a 10-year window and see that those numbers start with B's, not M's. And it's a different financial reality. And the legal risk is very different because of it. Right now, the G6 schools are having to carry the legal risk of Ohio State and Michigan because of the NCAA structure as it is right now. They can't come to a more sane collegial type structure as we're currently configured. They're dragged into this. The P4 can't evolve to a sane legal structure either. But again, it comes back to that middle part of the P4, because if they were not associated in sharing revenue, they could not generate it on their own either. They are closer to G6 on their own than they are coattailing. And that's the financial reality for them. We could go back and look at from 1984 when the Supreme Court deregulated college television. If we were to look at every metered game in a television rating, I promise you, if we go do it, and I have looked at it, about 90% of the games involve at least one of those 20 to 25 teams we're talking about. You're not going to see Wake Forest versus Duke, no offense to them, show up on those metered ratings. And if it didn't matter to Florida State, the outcome of that game, that rating would look like East Carolina versus Charlotte. Okay, that's just the reality of it that nobody wants to admit. But now we look at it and go, how do you get to something that makes sense? With inside the G6, there is absolutely talk of, well, should we have a playoff of our own? Would it generate more money for us than, say, a bowl structure? And I think where you're going to end up landing is, yeah, there's a lot of people starting to support that, but it's going to come with an asterisk. They're not going to be willing to give up a slot, at least one, and they're going to advocate for more in an expanded college football playoff, that the best team in the G6 is going to still go on to the CFP. But they're absolutely going to look at their postseason and see if there is a more revenue-friendly and, frankly, saner structure than ESPN-owned bowls.
Makes perfect sense. And I, for one, as a fan of college football, would love to see a G6 playoff. Because ultimately right now, while a seat at the table is valuable, I think a seat at the table isn't necessary if we can actually subsidize the G6 level of football and just acknowledge that there is a slight difference right now, especially with the transfer portal and guys that are great G6 players getting picked off every year to go play for P4 programs. So what is the appetite for that postseason? Because once you start that postseason, you are essentially acknowledging that you are a step below. So I can see it being very much a catch-22.
Oh, it's definitely a catch-22. And, where this is kind of evolving, and I've been following this for a long time, guys. I know you have too. The NCAA structure as it's currently configured just doesn't really fit the economic model here. It doesn't fit the legal risk. It doesn't fit the evolution that's taking place. And by the way, these are none of these issues. People were talking about these things all the way back into the 80s. They just didn't know what it would look like. But I think you're going to have to look at that structure, and we're going to cover this issue pretty extensively here at diehardsportsnetwork.com over the next few weeks of what does that future look like, what considerations will shape it, and I think what you eventually will land on is a revised postseason structure for the G6. I think there probably still will be some access in that college football playoff. But a revised postseason. And I think at least at the G6 level, you're going to be looking at something that very much resembles like the European soccer model. I think promotion and relegation. I think revision of some of the conference boundaries to make them more regional and make them more sensical. Right now it's just complete nonsense that if revenue is one of your problems, that you're flying teams all over the country because you don't want to be in the same conference with a school in your state. Okay, you know what I mean? Like that seems kind of nonsensical and completely not in line with where we are economically. So yeah, these conversations are absolutely going to happen. They're going to accelerate, and the fact that this bill is sitting there with a chance to lock some of the conference movement, I think accelerates the conversations with some urgency pretty big. Because if there's a chance down the road that things can't move, there are people going to be talking about moves.
Visiting with Tim Stevens of the Diehard Sports Network. I just want, before we let you go, because you've referenced it a couple of times in our conversation, Washington, Congress, this Cruz Cantwell bill that's in front of a lot of different people right now. How do you view its future as we sit here today?
Well, I think it has zero chance to pass because now the SEC and Big Ten are absolutely going to get their lobby on it after they got made the villain there. And in this situation, I really, it's easy to point the finger at the rich guy, but that was really not where that push was coming from, and that bill was definitely not written with the SEC and Big Ten's interest in mind. So now that they've taken that sort of shot, they're going to fight it, and I don't think it has much of a chance to pass. But I do think it's going to push the conversation farther with this urgency over the summer, and some conversations that might not have taken place until closer to television contract extensions, I think accelerate pretty significantly this summer.
Tim, great stuff. Thanks for hopping on with us today. We appreciate the time. Great catching up with you, and we'll do it again soon.
Appreciate you.
There you go. Tim Stevens of the Diehard Sports Network on sort of the moat, the great divide in college sports. Is it going to happen? Is that split imminent? We've heard a lot of conversations about it recently with what's happening in Washington and things having to be added, taken away from that Cruz Cantwell bill about super conferences, something that I think we've all in the back of our minds thought there would be a good chance that it takes place one day. So a conversation that we had about it there. Interesting. We'll follow up on it a little bit more next on Jocks.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, and Three-Man Front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.
Full Send Golf.
You guys know how much I really, really love golf.
Full Send Golf, 2v2. Me and VOD versus Big John and Kyle. Oh, it feels good to be back on the links with the boys.
Join the party on the golf course.
Back to golf in a big way. Now what, practice? Let's go hit the range.
I was like, let's go to the range.
We are headed to the golf course. Yo, you want to golf with us?
No.
You don't play golf?
No.
Try. We got to break par.
I'm very, very excited. You excited?
Yeah.
Full Send Golf. Follow and listen on your favorite platform. Full Send Golf, part of the Full Send podcast.
All right, the Full Send Golf channel.
I was like, let's go to the range.
Then fell in love with it.
This pod is about to be crazy. I don't even know what's going to happen.
Join the party on the golf course.
You guys know how much I really, really love golf.
All right, Salim, we got 2 putts to break 80 here. Get it there, right? You wouldn't want it any other way, brother. These are the ones we practice. Go, go, go. Yeah! Oh, let's go. Let's go, 80s book. Yeah, even though it's from the Reds.
It's just like a boys scrap.
Full Send Golf. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.